Get on up with Dark and Bold from Community Coffee.
Come on. Get on up. Bust it loose when you want to say, bust it loose.
Look for it at your local grocery or communitycoffee.com.
And on a Saturday morning at 90, well, it's Monday morning. You gotta get this right. Monday morning, it's the 9 to 10 show. My name's Dave Kesling, sitting in for the vacationing Jack Patty, and what a special show we have got for you today. If you do have any calls or comments or questions, we are going to open up the phone lines a little bit later on and give a chance to shoot your questions to our guest. Our Stuttgart Motors text line is available at 859-253-5959. This is the 9 to 10 show on 97.3 FM WVLK 590 on your AM dial and streaming anywhere in the world, WVLKAM.com. And once again, I'm going to turn up the pot and say good morning to Ms. Sarah Treadwell. And now the big introduction, okay? She is the mother of two children, the proud mother of two children, awesome kiddos, as she said, and one just had a birthday yesterday, right?
Yeah, Miles.
Okay.
6th birthday.
How old is he?
6.
6 years old. So she's the mother of two awesome kiddos, but in addition to that, she's a beekeeper, she's a scuba diver, and she's just recently finished a Master of Science in Communications degree. So she's got that going for her. And we're not even going to mention the fact that she just got back from a trek to Mount Everest not long ago, and before that with NASA and the Mars habitat, because what she's doing now is getting ready to start a PhD degree at the University of North Dakota, getting a science communication graduate research type degree. She is currently using all this science communications information and knowledge to serve as the communications officer on board the ocean core drilling research vessel, the JOIDES Resolution. See, I am educatable. You can get, I can get it right when I want to. You guys are literally, you're coming to me on your own private satellite dish on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Sarah, good morning once again.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
This is, well, listen, I'll be honest with you, with the geology Jones that I have going most of the time, this is as big a treat, maybe a bigger treat for me. And I want you now, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away. Tell me what you guys are doing out there in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, well, I am on Expedition 399 on the JOIDES Resolution, which, as you mentioned, is an ocean core drilling research ship. This is a part of the NSF, and we are currently over the Atlantis Massif near an area called the Lost City Hydrothermal Field. And what we are doing is not only core drilling, and I'll get to why this has turned into an unexpectedly very exciting expedition, we are also fluid sampling. And what we are doing is looking for essentially the thermal limits of life. We're looking for how hot is too hot for microbes to exist in this area, and also the interaction of the rocks and the seawater, and those can produce different molecules that are really good for life. And so we're looking at that here to help future NASA missions when they're going to icy moons of Saturn and Jupiter. We're hoping to plan to test and sample water out there as well. So what we're looking at here is going to help those future missions. So this is astrobiology, and that's really how I got tied into this expedition. But we unexpectedly decided to drill into a hole that has been very, it's been very generous, and it's let us absolutely smash world records. The previous record for drilling into mantle rock in this area was at about 200 meters, and that was set in the 90s. And we have hit about 1,200 meters in depth of mantle rock. So it's been really unexpected and exciting.
I tell you, it is amazing, because the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, the Earth is kind of like a baseball. The leather covering is what the crust is, what we're sitting on right now. but the crust is very thick in the continents. If I was to go out here and, I'm sure the city fathers not like that, but I start drilling right here at Broadway and Main Street, I couldn't get down to what we call the mantle, which is under the crust easily. The ocean,
No.
bottom of the ocean, the crust is very thin, and especially where you guys are at the mid-Atlantic ridge, like we mentioned, the seams on a baseball, the ocean is actually expanding. I explained this last hour, that when I was in Scotland, I was up near Loch Ness, and I was surprised to discover that the mountains in the highlands of Scotland were actually at one time connected to the upper ranges of the Appalachians here in the United States. And as the Atlantic Ocean basin has spread along that mid-Atlantic range, those mountain ranges have been separated to now, millions of years later, quite distance across an entire ocean. But the rocks in Scotland are the same, generally, the rocks here. And that's where you guys are, is because the crust is really thin at the mid-Atlantic range. But you've discovered some other things. Tell me more about the biology.
Well, we the Lost City hydrothermal field is one of the most unique. It's the only one we know of in the world, areas for astrobiology research. And we were particularly interested in, like I said, seeing what the limits of life were. And so as we were drilling down into this hole, we have pulled up some core samples that have shown a lot of promise for evidence of microbial life. And the people ask me, well, what are the microbes? What do they look like? What are they? We have to still go and do more testing to know exactly what we're dealing with. But there have been a lot of signatures that seem to indicate that there is more life here than we expected. And you have to remember, this is incredibly deep water, right? So it's hard for really anything to survive at those depths, and there's no sunlight. And the vents, normally vent fields are incredibly, incredibly hot. These are not as hot, but they're still pretty hot. So it's toasty, it's dark, there's an immense amount of pressure. And the type of life that we expect to see here are called extremophiles. So they are things that live in really extreme conditions, and we're finding a lot of stuff. So it's going to be a fun 2 years for our scientists, because they basically have dibs on the research for the next 2 years. So they are the only ones who get to do research and publish, different papers on it, and then it will get opened up to other scientists after 2 years.
Okay, now the thing that's special about this, as I mentioned before, this is literally a mountain range under the ocean. Now, how deep are the peaks beneath your ship? How long is your drill pipe?
So the drill pipe, I have to look that up. So it's 1,200 meters down once you hit down into the ocean crust floor, or the floor of the ocean.
Right.
We're like also about that same amount of depth in water above that. We're like 900 meters around there.
Okay.
The
Which
ship,
is 2,700
this
feet.
is the thing that's, yeah, I was just going to say, this is the thing that's really fun for us American-based communicators. This is an international ship, so a lot, I'd say like 3 out of 4 times you're going to hear things referenced in meters, and so I haven't always done the math in my head to give you the reference of feet. But we have with us on the ship, we have 3 miles worth of drill pipe. That's how deep this can go, and the ship can carry up to 6 miles worth of drill pipe. So we are prepared to go very deep if we want to.
And the thing that's interesting about where you are, and you're talking about the biology is essentially what we're talking about. What is an interesting case is this is an active series of volcanoes, if you will, that stretches all the way from Iceland all the way down around the tip of South America for the mid-Atlantic range. And what you were telling me is that this super dense, salty, cold ocean water percolates down into essentially a live volcano, and that's what's causing this is the magma, the lava down there, heats up the water, and then it comes shooting back out into these fountains that you're talking about, right? Or what's the term you used?
The vents,
Yes.
the serpentinization. Are you talking about?
I'm talking about the white smokers, the
Yeah,
chimneys.
the serpentinization. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so there's a chemical reaction happening called serpentinization. And to your point, when you say underwater volcanoes, it's not like not what you're thinking on land. The crust in this spot is spreading apart. These two plates are spreading so slowly
How
that
slow
the
is it?
so slowly, like I don't even I it's barely a centimeter a year. I mean, it's so slow that the lava cools down really quickly.
Mhm.
The magma is cooling down very quickly. So what's happening is this chemical reaction is just causing these big spires to build up, and I always compare it to like calcium deposits building up on your faucet. You know how you get that
Mhm.
crusty white stuff starting to build up when you're not that I would know anything about this, not great at cleaning your faucet. The ocean is having this chemical reaction, and it's creating heat. So it has an exothermic reaction, and that the exothermic is when it creates heat because of the chemical reaction that's occurring between these minerals in the rocks and the seawater. And it's also a byproduct of that is building up these carbonate chimney vents.
Mhm.
And they're ghostly white. They're really, really unique and cool. And like I said, the only ones we know of so far on this planet.
And they're the ones that are sitting there literally. If you put a camera,
Literally right under us right
yeah,
now.
and if you put a camera on it, you can literally see a jet of this superheated water coming out of the top of these chimney-like structures. They're more kind of like stalactites upside down, except they're hollow. They have that hot water coming out of them, and they continue to grow, don't they?
Yeah, these are so that's how black smokers work.
Oh,
These are
okay.
different. They're not
Ooh,
hollow, they're solid,
wow.
and they're just building up, and the heat and the energy is purely coming from the chemical reaction. It's actually not coming from anything from the Earth's core underneath
Mm,
there. That's what makes these really special,
okay.
because we know that if the certain types of minerals and the seawater have this kind of heat that they can create chemically, we know that those same sort of minerals and salt water are out on those icy moons in outer space,
We
which
think.
means that they don't need to have cores with, hot cores. They can
Mm,
still have this sort of heat being generated, even if they don't have a mantle and an inner core and an outer core like we do on this planet. So that's
right.
what makes it really cool.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm going to hold you with that cool thought for a minute because I got to talk about the weather. So I'm going to be back in a moment.
Okay.
Sarah Treadwell joins us from the middle, literally, of the Atlantic Ocean on the JOIDES. I forgot that. JOIDES Resolution ship. So, all right, she's making faces at me. All right, okay. We're going to be back with her in just a moment here on 97.3 FM WVLK's 9 to 10 show. And the Stuttgart Motors text line is open if you'd like to text us a message at 859-253-5959.
Get on up with Dark and Bold from Community Coffee.
Come on. Get on now. Bust the loose when you wanna say, bust the loose.
Look for it at your local grocery or communitycoffee.com.
Here at 97.3 FM, WVLK Lexington, 9 to 10 show in progress. My name's Dave Kesling, sitting in for the vacationing Jack Patty, and joining me is Sarah Treadwell, who is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on the JOIDES Resolution geological core drilling ship. And I was going to ask you at this point to give me a brief tour of what you have got on the ship and what is going on out there.
Yeah, the ship is huge. It's hard to wrap your mind around what this whole thing is. Even, I watched lots of videos in preparation to sail on this, and I still was just blown away getting onto this ship. It's first of all, very maze-like, and that's by design because think like the Titanic. If we were to have the hull hit, there are different sections that don't have connecting hallways and stairwells, so that way we can close off parts of the ship if we need to. So it can make it very maze-like feeling. But the ship is about the length of a football and a quarter, maybe almost a half. So like a football field and a half in length. And then we have this tall centerpiece that's called the derrick. And think oil drilling ship, because this actually was an oil drill ship at one point, and it got converted for science. So that oil drill centerpiece, the derrick, is a half a football field in height. And we have 117 people on board, and we work 12-hour shifts 24/7. There is no sleeping for this ship. It's always busy. There's always something going on. And it goes on 2-month expeditions at a time, and it doesn't have a port of call. So no joke, as soon as we get to port, there's going to be a new crew that steps on and leaves the next day. So we have, like I said, 117 people. 51 of those are scientists and technicians, and then the rest of them are support staff. So one of the most incredible things about sailing is that we have people that cook, clean, do your laundry. That is my absolute favorite thing. You put a bag outside your door, and then it comes back with all your clothes washed and folded, and you can do that every day if you want.
Okay, where does my wife sign up for that?
Yeah, I know. When I heard that, I was like, how many cruises can one do in a year?
Wow.
The ship, most of the work in the life is in like towards the front part of the ship, because like I said in the first segment, we have so much drill pipe that we have to bring with us that's what a huge portion of the ship's space is dedicated towards. It's to carrying all that drill pipe. And the drilling operation, think of like connecting straws. Like it's just link to link to link to link. So they'll just send each piece down one at a time, and they're actually tripping. They call it tripping pipe. They're actually tripping pipe right now. We're heading back down for our final drill into this hole, because we're on week 7 of this expedition, or we're heading into week 7. That is this is kind of our last hurrah. And it's got a big drill bit on the bottom, and then it will push down very hard, and the drill rotates, and then in our expedition, we're only drilling hard rock, so it's going to catch all the core samples in like a plastic core liner. And then that core liner gets brought up, and there is multiple full working labs on the ship. And that's what makes this ship really unique, is that a bunch of it has been outfitted with working labs. So as soon as the samples come up, scientists can start analyzing the core samples and doing what they need to do, especially with this astrobiology, microbiology element. It's really crucial for us to be able to start looking at things as soon as we get them up.
Right.
So
I've been very fortunate in that you've been kind enough to share some of the videos of your shipboard adventures, and they are fascinating. Is there a website where people can go out and see some of these things? A website? Go ahead.
Yeah, the JOIDES Resolution is, so it's JOIDES and then resolution. It's one word, .com or .org, I'm sorry. But we have, we're available on social media everywhere. So just look up the JR, that's the acronym for it, and you'll find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and then I am Space K Sarah. That's my professional name. You can find my socials anywhere under as Space K Sarah. And yeah, we've been peppering social media with lots of videos and cool stuff. But the website too has just lots of information about the ship and its work overall, not just to this specific mission.
Right. I want to talk about the moon pool, but I've got to let Emily talk about. I got to let Emily talk about some news. So, Sarah Treadwell, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, do your Arnold Schwarzenegger for me. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
There we go. We'll be back with Sarah in the Atlantic Ocean in just a moment. This is the 9 to 10 show on 97.3 FM, WVLK, Lexington. The news is next.
Get on up with Dark and Bold from Community Coffee.
Come on. Get on up. Bust the loose when you wanna say, bust the loose.
your local grocery or communitycoffee.com.
I'm at 97.3 FM WVLK, and back out to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, Sarah Treadwell on board the Geological Survey vessel, the JOIDES Resolution. Again, good morning, I guess. It's afternoon there, right?
It is. Yeah, it's almost 2:00 here.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I want to just real quickly say that we're talking about the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, or you could call it the Mid-Atlantic Rift. And it's interesting because it's basically underwater until you get to the northern end of it, which is in Iceland. And the rift actually comes ashore in Iceland. And one of the cool pictures, you're doing the scuba diving, it's the picture of the scuba diver sitting there with their left finger on the European plate and their right finger on the Atlantic plate. We're talking plate tectonics, and they're moving apart.
Yep.
So that is way cool. So the moon pool
cool.
on your big ship is like a big open hole right in the middle of the ship. And you can look down in it, and the ocean is gurgling around in there. Is that kind of a really strange experience?
It's pretty off limits. You're not allowed to get too close to the moon pool, and then there's a little bit of a covering that goes over it to keep the splashing under control. But it is really funny to, especially to kids and school groups, let them know that there is a giant hole in the bottom of the ship, and it's always open. It's just there, and it actually causes us to have to drive very slow. So though she be but mighty, she be a slow ship, and we can only go about 10 knots. That's about where we top out, because you can't go any faster because of this giant hole in the bottom of the ship. No, it does not make us sink. We are such a large ship that there's enough buoyancy that, a hole is no problem.
Okay, but it's bizarre to think that here's a swimming pool that's got a really deep end. So
Yep. There's a big hole. There's a big hole in the middle of the ship, and it is, and the reason they call it the moon pool, I can't explain why, but the water, day or night, it is this glowy, gorgeous blue.
Wow.
There's videos of that too on our YouTube channel. Some people sometimes have spotted some sharks, and so you can see some videos of those, and it's like the prettiest. I see why they call it the moon pool.
Is it pretty, or is it kind of creepy too?
I think it's pretty, but
Okay.
you are talking to someone who's a scuba diver, and I enjoy the ocean and the water, and so
Oh,
I think
super.
it's pretty.
I need to hook you up with my my cousin Doug. He's a scuba diver. He was the chief diving safety officer when they recovered the Monitor off of Cape Hatteras. So kind of interesting there.
Cool.
So anyway, we are talking about the fact that you're doing the geology. We're getting the core samples, which are very hard to get to. You guys have got them, and I've seen them. Again, visit the website. You got to see this in person. I'm sorry this is radio that I can't share the videos with you, because they are just absolutely amazing to see these long, it's like you stick a straw down into a really thick milkshake and pull it up, and then lay that milkshake out on a table, except this is rock that you guys have drilled, and you can see all the different layers in it that have, this rock over time has built itself up. So here I'm doing the talking, and I need to let you talk. You're the expert. So
No, that's a great analogy. It's we're not a sedimentary core, so the layers aren't as distinct, because the way, again, sorry you're on the radio, because there's a great visual analogy that shows that when the mantle is pulling up, it's sort of like, think of one layer underneath the other on a curved surface, and it kind of rips upward, and so it can cause a bunch of different mixing and matching and layering, which actually makes it hard for us to date our cores compared to a sedimentary core, which has very distinct layers, like pages of a book that you can see. This is a little more jumbly. The cores, though, I mean, to your point, these are incredibly difficult rocks to get, and it's absolutely moving to get to hold some of these and be like, wow, I am looking at parts of the earth that no human has ever seen before right now. and that very few people will have the opportunity to get to see and to hold like this. Just awe-inspiring.
And the thing is it's all brand new crust on that spreading zone, so that makes it even worse. But I want to zero in on, the geology of the thing. What's the website again? Just go out and look for JOIDES Resolution or look at the court, and you can find it on social media. Google search.
JOIDES, yeah, JOIDES. Even if you just say the JR, that can bring stuff up to the JR Ocean, something like that. It will bring the ship's information up.
Well, now we're talking, I want to get back. We've done the geology side of this thing, and that's all very exciting to me. But the exobiology is also very exciting. And we're talking about the fact that most life on Earth is very much tied to the photosynthesis process. The plants make the various compounds out of this air through photosynthesis. So cellulose, which is actually kind of a sugar, kind of the base of what the living life we know on the surface of the Earth is like. But the white vent material, you're saying there's a whole different kind of life there, and that might give us some clue what might be hiding under the icy shell of Enceladus, the moon of Saturn.
Well, the chemical reactions are producing hydrocarbons, which are the building blocks of life. And we know that chemical soup has the right stuff for life. And so there's a lot of theories that suggest that perhaps a vent field like this might be how life got started on Earth. And if it's here, and if the conditions are right out there, it's very possible that there could be microbial life out there. Astrobiology is just such a fascinating field, and it's such a young field because the other types of vents that you're kind of thinking about, the black smokers that have very, very complex ecosystems that are living off of a process called chemiosynthesis. So they're eating the chemicals. That's the bottom of the food chain, is eating chemicals that are coming out of these vents. Those weren't discovered until the 90s. So it kind of was that, oh my gosh moment. Well, if we're finding life in these places that we would have never, it didn't seem like it was possible. Well, that just opens up this huge possibility now in outer space where we could look, because there was this very fixed idea that you have to follow the water into space, right? And has to be in the Goldilocks zone. It's not too hot, not too cold, just right. And now we're finding out that, oh, wow, we can find life even on our planet in the most extreme places. So it's just been, to me, it's the coolest field you can be involved in.
Yeah. The thing is you look at some of these papers, we're talking about life that is based on chemical energy as opposed to solar energy. We're also talking about life in the black smokers. There's this colony of these 6-foot, 10-foot long tube worms that live in clusters around these super hot hydro vents. And they're an unusual species of shrimp that are also oriented in their metabolism. And the other thing that's interesting about it is it's such an alien environment. It's very sulfur rich, which is something that, for us, hydrogen sulfide, H2S, is poisonous. But to these organisms, they're using the chemical energy in this poisonous compound and somehow have incorporated into their metabolism. And that's kind of what we're talking about with exobiology is, are we going to be able to recognize life forms elsewhere in the universe? Are we even going to recognize them as life? So I'm going to leave that as kind of an interesting question for you to mull as I push the button and we do more commercials. All right. So that's the proper response, Sarah. Sarah Treadwell is joining us from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's unbelievable because we're talking the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. She and her crew members are shooting a pipe down into the earth, but it has ramifications for things that NASA is going to shoot up into the air. So we're going to talk more with Sarah in just a moment. Here on 97.3 FM WVLK as the 9 to 10 show continues. All right, I'm going to play a little music here if I can get the machine to cooperate. It's not cooperating. There it is. Now it's cooperating. Right. I tell you what, you think, Sarah, that your control panel is confusing. You want to try this thing sometime. So anyway, our final segment, we got about 8-9 minutes here to talk about this, and I want to have you give me more information on this exobiology thing. We've got the most volcanic moon in the solar system, Io, around Jupiter. It's literally volcanoes all over it. But Enceladus, what's going on with it is a little bit different. Tell me about that.
Well, and there is an exciting announcement actually just a couple of days ago. The James Webb Space Telescope was peeking at Enceladus, and they saw some water plume out of it, which is the biggest plume that we've seen come out of that icy moon so far. And that's really exciting because we had known from the Cassini mission that there was water pluming out into space from this crusty, icy moon, which implies that there is a liquid ocean underneath it. Mm-hmm. And so they are developing different missions to fly through both. Clipper is going to go out to Europa, but with the same concept of flying through these water plumes and tasting, if you will, the water with different sensors. And the fact that this massive eruption of water happened is really two great things. One, that means that whatever spacecraft that flies through it might not have to fly as dangerously close as they had thought, because it's got a lot of water coming out of it. Mm-hmm. But also that means that there's a lot of energy somehow exploding that out into space. And that's really, really exciting. And the thing that's very exciting to me about science and space science is why so much energy? And that's a question that we need to now start asking and figuring out.
Well, like in Io's case, it's orbiting the solar system's largest planet, Jupiter. And the tidal forces on it here on Earth, the moon in our sky sits there and causes the tides to rise and fall. So there's an effect of the moon's gravity on Earth. And in Io's case, the gravity, the tremendous gravity and radiation coming off of Jupiter causes literally that entire moon to keep flexing. And it's just like rubbing your hands together or rubbing your hands on your pants. Generates a friction, generates a heat, and in Io's case, it's the most volcanic body in the solar system. In Enceladus's case, we're thinking that the tidal forces are heating that ocean, and as you mentioned, that's what's causing some interesting chemistry. But we got to get through that crust of ice.
Yeah, we're not there yet, Even this expedition, we were concerned about the safety of our drill bits. This was as deep. We were actually planning on deepening a different hole, but that was still going to be a very, very deep hole that we were going to trying to go deep as really anyone has ever attempted. And no one is really quite sure what was going to happen to the drill bits. It turns out that they seem to be working just fine. But that's sort of the same thing with those icy moons. We want to investigate it, but we're not quite there yet with our technology to know how to get through that icy surface.
Well, they're planning on a submarine, but again, the submarine's got to get down to where the water is.
Get down there.
And that's going to be kind of a trick. So, and again, the thing I'm interested in is, and I think you are too, is this exotic biology you're seeing on your mission is going to hopefully give us a little heads up on identifying the processes of exotic biology that doesn't quite work the way our red blood cells do. It's like horseshoe crabs have blue blood. What's the deal with that, for example? So, it's got to be very exciting for you.
Oh, yeah. I always like to remind people, too, because as soon as you tell them that you're interested in astrobiology and that's looking for life in the solar system, they're like, oh, aliens. And I always like to remind people that, science, good science isn't going to Mars and looking for little green men in a cave. That's not what we're doing. For example, the Perseverance rover is doing core drilling on Mars, and what she's looking for are evidence of stromatolites, which is a type of like a bacteria buildup, I guess is the best way to describe it. And we know that there was water on Mars, and around the same time water would have been present on Mars, we know that stromatolites existed on Earth. So it's sort of that solid logic of like, okay, well, we know that time-wise this should line up. Let's send something to look for something that makes sense. And that's kind of what we're doing here.
I tell you what, I am apologetic because we are running out of time. But before we do, I want to tell you that you have done some 50 seminars with classrooms throughout the United States and so forth and so on. Okay, she's doing
counting right now too. We might be getting close to 60 now, but yeah.
Okay. If a elementary school teacher or a high school science teacher wants to get a hold of you to maybe do a seminar to bounce off the satellite dish like we just have, how would they get a hold of you to arrange this, or can they do that?
They can do that. Well, I will first say that I am sorry, my expedition is almost done.
Oh, man.
But there are, I know there are a handful more that are coming up. And again, oh gosh, there's so many browsers open on this computer. The JOIDES Resolution, if you go down to the bottom of the homepage, there is a part that says live outreach down way at the bottom. And there is a calendar, and then you can sign up for a live ship to shore. The next expedition after mine, they're going up to Iceland. So,
okay, so they're going to get to put one finger on the other plate, right? Okay.
Yeah, that is on my bucket dive list to dive in that fissure in Iceland. But yeah, and if they are interested, and this is my little like PSA, you will want to sign up within the next year. Unfortunately, this ship is getting retired, and there is no ship lined up to replace it at this time, and that is very disappointing to a lot of scientists and a lot of people who are in this line of work. So the window is closing to get your tour of the ship.
That's sad. Sarah Treadwell, thank you for taking time out of your day and to be a guest on the show today. And once again, social media, JOIDES, JOIDES Resolution. Do that in a Google search, and that'll hook you up with all kinds of different ways to get a hold of Space Case Sarah. So appreciate you being on, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to your son.
I will let him know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Sarah Treadwell from out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. This is the 9 to 10 show. Dave Kesling saying Jack's back tomorrow. I am going to get you into the news in just a minute.
If you need to know the law to advance your career in human resources, but you aren't a lawyer, we can help. At Texas A&M School of Law, we offer a career-defining Master of Legal Studies in HR and Employment Law Policy and Management to help non-lawyers like you navigate the complex HR legal issues every industry faces. Gain the legal skills you need to advance your HR career from one of the most respected law schools in the nation. Visit law.tamu.edu/MLS to learn more.